Guess we're dating now. The whole class laughed, and I swear my stomach dropped so hard I almost forgot how to sit like a normal person. Mason Reed was turned halfway around in his chair, grinning at me like Professor Harris had just paired us for a group quiz and not a relationship role-play assignment where we had to pretend to be a couple in front of 27 people. I forced a laugh because that was what you did when your crush accidentally ruined your life before lunch. Lucky me. I managed, which made Mason's grin widen. That was the problem with him. He made normal things feel dangerous. A hoodie, a half-empty iced coffee, the way he leaned one arm across the back of his chair like he had no idea everyone looked at him when he moved. Professor Harris kept reading names from the front of the room, but I barely heard her after mine. Ethan Walker, paired with Mason Reed. It echoed in my head like some kind of punishment. Or worse, a wish I had never meant to say out loud. Relax, Mason murmured, leaning closer while the class got loud around us. I'm a great fake boyfriend. Heat climbed up my neck immediately. That's very reassuring. You sound scared. I'm scared of failing. Sure. He looked at me a second too long. Not enough for anyone else to notice. Just enough for my chest to tighten. Then he turned back around like he hadn't just made my entire body forget its job. Professor Harris passed out the scenario sheets, walking between the desks with this pleased little smile like she knew exactly how uncomfortable everyone was. You'll have 1 week to prepare. Next Friday, each pair performs a conflict resolution scene. Stay in character. Make it believable. Someone behind me groaned. Someone else whispered, "This is evil." I agreed. Completely. Mason reached back and tapped my desk with 2 fingers. Let me see ours. I handed him the packet, trying not to notice how close his hand came to mine. Trying not to notice was basically my full-time job around Mason. He scanned the page, then let out a quiet laugh. Oh wow. What? He turned the sheet toward me. Scenario 4. Long-term couple dealing with jealousy, emotional distance, and unresolved romantic tension. I stared at the words. My throat went dry. Of course. Of course we got that one. Not the couple arguing about chores. Not the couple planning a vacation. No. We got jealousy and unresolved romantic tension because apparently the universe had a sixth sense of humor. Mason's eyes flicked up to mine. We won. We absolutely did not win. Come on. This is dramatic. We can work with dramatic. You would think that. He laughed under his breath, soft and warm, and I hated how much I liked hearing it. The bell didn't save me. Not really. Everyone started packing up, chairs scraping, people already joking about who would be the worst fake couple. I shoved my notebook into my backpack too fast and nearly dropped my pen. Mason caught it before it hit the floor. Just reached down, picked it up, and held it out between us. Careful, boyfriend. I froze. It was a joke. Obviously. Mason joked with everyone. He had that easy confidence, the kind that made people feel like they were in on something with him. It meant nothing. That was what I told myself as I took the pen from his hand. But his fingers brushed mine for half a second, and neither of us moved right away. The room around us got weirdly quiet, even though it wasn't quiet at all. Mason looked down at our hands, then back at me. His smile changed. Smaller now. Less casual. We should probably practice, he said. I nodded like my pulse wasn't suddenly in my ears. Yeah, sure. Tonight. My brain stopped. Tonight. Unless your fake boyfriend has to schedule an appointment. I laughed. Too quick. Too nervous. No. Tonight works. Mason slung his backpack over one shoulder and back toward the door, still watching me. Cool. Text me your address. You already have my address. Then text it again. Make me feel wanted. And then he walked out, leaving me standing there with a stupid pen in my hand and my heart acting like something had already happened. Nothing had happened. That was the important part. We had been assigned a class project. That was all. Just psychology homework. Just roleplay. Just Mason being Mason. But when my phone buzzed 5 minutes later with a message that said, "Can't wait to ruin our fake relationship tonight," I knew I was in trouble. I spent the rest of the day pretending Mason Reed coming over to my apartment was a normal thing. It was not. I cleaned my living room twice, moved the same stack of mail from the counter to my desk, and then back to the counter, and changed shirts 3 times before deciding that caring this much about a class project was embarrassing enough to qualify as a medical problem. The worst part was, Mason had been to my place before. Study groups. Pizza nights. One time after midterms when 5 of us watched a terrible horror movie and Mason fell asleep on my couch with his shoes still on. So this should have felt familiar. It did not. Because now there was a packet on my coffee table that basically told us to act like we had been in love long enough to hurt each other. I kept telling myself it meant nothing. It was homework. A performance. Two guys in a psychology class trying not to fail in front of everyone. Then my phone buzzed. Outside. Just one word, and my heart started acting stupid again. I opened the door and found Mason leaning against the hallway wall in a faded navy hoodie, holding a grocery bag like he had brought supplies for a storm. Before you judge me, he lifted the bag. Relationship trauma requires chips. I stepped aside, trying not to smile too hard. That is not in the rubric. Professor Harris clearly forgot. He walked in like he belonged there, but slower than usual, eyes moving around my apartment. The couch, the lamp, the mug I had left in the sink. Then me. You cleaned. My stomach tightened. No, I did not. Mason's mouth twitched. Ethan. I picked up like two things. Your textbooks are organized by size. I looked at the coffee table. They were. Unfortunately. Mason laughed, not loud, just enough to make my face heat. Relax. It is cute. I hated that word coming from him. Cute. It landed too softly and stayed too long. He dropped onto the couch and pulled out chips, gummy worms, and 2 cans of Dr. Pepper. I did not know what fake boyfriends drink, so I guessed. Fake boyfriends. I sat beside him, leaving a very normal amount of space. At least, I thought it was normal. Mason glanced at the gap between us. Wow. Emotional distance already. We are so committed to the scenario. You are impossible. And yet you invited me over. For homework. Right. He opened the packet, but his smile lingered like he did not fully believe me. We started building our fake relationship history. Mason insisted we met in freshman orientation because I looked like the kind of guy who would pretend not to be lost while absolutely being lost. I argued that he would be the one lost because he gave off, confident with no actual plan energy. That made him laugh harder than it should have. For a while, it was easy. Too easy. We decided our fake first date was at a diner because Mason claimed I had judgmental diner coffee opinions. We decided our fake first fight was because he forgot my birthday, which I said was unrealistic because Mason remembered everything. The second it left my mouth, the room shifted. Mason looked up from the packet. You noticed that? I froze. What? That I remember things. His voice was lighter than his eyes. I shrugged like my chest was not tightening. You remember stuff about everyone. Not everyone. There was a pause. A real one. The kind that made the soda cans, the packet, the whole fake assignment suddenly feel far away. Mason's knee brushed mine. Maybe by accident. Maybe because he had leaned closer without either of us noticing. I should have moved. I did not. He looked down at our knees, then back at me. So, he murmured, tapping the paper with one finger. In our fake relationship, who fell first? I forced a laugh, but it came out thin. Probably you. You seem dramatic. Mason smiled, but this time it was quieter. Maybe. My pulse jumped. Maybe. He held my gaze for 1 second too long. Or maybe you just missed the signs. I could not think of a single normal answer. So I looked down at the packet like it might save me. It did not. Mason only leaned back, grabbed a chip, and acted like he had not just knocked the air out of my lungs. Come on, boyfriend, he said, all casual again. Let us figure out how we fall apart. And that was the first time I wondered if Mason was still talking about the assignment. By the time Mason and I actually started practicing, my apartment felt too small. Not physically. It was the same one-bedroom place with a couch that sank too much on the left side and a kitchen light that buzzed when it had been on too long. But with Mason sitting beside me, one knee still close enough to brush mine every few minutes, every inch of space felt like it was paying attention. We read through the first half of the scene twice. The first time was awful because we kept laughing. Mason gave his fake boyfriend character the most dramatic size possible, and I told him he sounded like a guy arguing in a grocery store about organic bananas. The second time was better. Too much better. You never make time for me anymore. I read, trying to keep my voice flat and normal. Mason looked at the page, then at me. That is not how you would say it. I frowned. How would I say it? He shifted closer, took the packet gently from my hand, and tapped the line. You would pretend you were joking first. Then you would say the real thing after, like it slipped out. My chest tightened. That is weirdly specific. Am I wrong? I wanted to say yes. I really did. But Mason was watching me with that quiet, focused look again. The one that made it feel like he could see the parts of me I had not given him permission to look at. So I shrugged. Maybe not. His thumb was still on the edge of the packet, close to mine. Try it again. I looked down at the page because looking at him felt dangerous. Wow, must be nice having all these other people to talk to. Mason leaned back a little, waiting. My throat went dry. I mean, you barely have time for me anymore. The apartment went silent. Not the awkward kind from earlier. This one was heavier. Mason was supposed to answer with his next line. Instead, he just stared at me. I laughed under my breath because I could not survive the pause. What? Mason blinked like he had gone somewhere and come back. Nothing. But he did not say the line. I nudged his shoulder with mine. You forgot. No, his voice was quieter now. It just sounded real. My heart kicked once hard. That is called acting, right? He looked down, smiling a little, but it did not reach his eyes. Good acting. I told myself to let it go. I told myself he meant the assignment. Then I reached for my soda at the same time he reached for the packet, and my hand knocked into the sharp corner of the coffee table. Ow. It was barely anything. Just a small scrape across one knuckle. I would have laughed it off, but Mason moved before I could. Hold on. He caught my hand carefully, turning it palm down under the lamp. Mason, it is fine. You are bleeding. Barely. Still bleeding. He got up and went straight to my kitchen like he knew where everything was, opening the drawer near the sink on the first try. Bandages? I stared after him. Top cabinet. You keep bandages in a cabinet? Where do you keep them? Somewhere normal. That is not an answer. He came back with a bandage and a paper towel, sitting closer this time. Too close to pretend we needed that little space for medical reasons. He cleaned the scrape with this careful look on his face, brows pulled together like my stupid knuckle was a serious emergency. I watched his fingers instead of his face because his face was worse. You always do that, I muttered. Do what? Act like small things matter. Mason paused. His thumb rested lightly against my hand. Maybe they do. I did not know what to say to that. The buzzing kitchen light filled the silence. Outside my window, a car passed slowly, headlights sliding across the wall and then disappearing. Mason smoothed the bandage over my knuckle, but he did not let go right away. His hand stayed around mine. Warm. Steady. There, he murmured. Your fake boyfriend saves the day. I should have joked back. That was the easy exit. The safe one. Instead, I looked at our hands and heard myself say, You are taking the role pretty seriously. Mason's eyes lifted to mine. The playful answer was right there. I could see him almost reach for it. But he did not use it. He just held my gaze and said, Maybe I like having a reason. My chest went tight enough that breathing felt complicated. Then my phone buzzed on the couch between us, loud and stupid and perfectly timed. A message from Noah lit up the screen. How is fake boyfriend night going? Mason saw it before I could turn the phone over. For a second, neither of us moved. Then Mason smiled, slow and unreadable. Fake boyfriend night. I grabbed the phone too fast. He is annoying. Sounds like he knows something. He knows nothing. Mason leaned back, still watching me. Then why are you blushing? And that was the moment I realized I could not keep calling this homework. Not when Mason looked at me like he was waiting for me to admit it first. The next morning, I woke up to 3 messages from Noah and 1 from Mason. Naturally, I opened Mason's first, because apparently I had no self-respect anymore. Your hand still attached? I stared at the screen longer than necessary. It was a normal message. Friendly. Barely anything. But then he sent another one. Need me to come check on my patient before class? My stomach flipped. I typed, You put 1 bandage on me. Then deleted it. Typed, I survived. Deleted that too. Finally, I sent, Barely. Very traumatic. His reply came fast. Brave of you to continue our relationship under these conditions. I smiled at my phone like an idiot until I caught my own reflection in the dark microwave door and immediately hated myself. By the time I got to campus, I had given myself the same speech at least 6 times. Mason was joking. Mason liked messing with people. Mason had always been comfortable with me. The only thing that had changed was the assignment, and maybe my ability to act normal, which had clearly died sometime between the bandage and the words, Maybe I like having a reason. I made it through half the day without seeing him. Then I walked into the hallway outside our psychology building and found Mason leaning against the wall with 2 coffees in his hands. One had my name written on it in black marker. Not Ethan. Fake boyfriend. I stopped walking. He looked up, and his smile came slow. You are late. Class starts in 9 minutes. Late to me. I took the coffee, trying not to let that land anywhere important. You wrote fake boyfriend on a public coffee cup. Technically, the barista did. You told the barista. I believe in honesty. I rolled my eyes, but my face was warm. A couple girls from our class passed by and noticed the cup immediately. One of them laughed. You two are taking this project way too seriously. Mason did not miss a beat. We are artists. You are annoying, I muttered, but he just bumped his shoulder lightly against mine. The touch lasted half a second, maybe less. Still, I felt it all the way down my arm. Inside class, Professor Harris gave everyone 20 minutes to rehearse in pairs while she walked around checking progress. Mason and I ended up in the back corner near the windows, close enough to everyone that we had to keep our voices low, but far enough that it felt strangely private. We opened the packet. We tried the jealousy scene again. This time, Mason was the one accusing me of pulling away. You do not get to shut me out and then act surprised when I stop chasing you, he read. But he was not really looking at the paper. I swallowed. Maybe I never asked you to chase me. His eyes stayed on mine. Maybe you did. Just not out loud. My grip tightened around the packet. For a second, I forgot we were in a classroom. Forgot the desks, the fluorescent lights, the low sound of other students practicing awkward arguments around us. Mason took one step closer, probably because the scene called for it. Probably. That was not in the script, I whispered. Neither was yours. He was close enough now that I could see the tiny crease between his brows, like he was trying to figure me out and trying not to at the same time. I should have laughed. I should have made a joke. Instead, I heard myself say, "Why do you keep doing that?" Mason's expression shifted. Doing what? Making it sound real. The question came out quieter than I meant it to. Too honest. Too close to the thing I was not supposed to say. Mason looked down at the packet between us, then back at me. His voice dropped. Maybe it is easier than pretending it is not. Everything in me stopped. I do not mean emotionally. I mean my body actually forgot how to move. Mason looked like he had surprised himself too. His mouth parted slightly, like he might take it back or maybe finally say the rest. I waited. I hated that I waited. Then Professor Harris appeared beside us with a clipboard. You two look intense. Good. Save some of that for Friday. Mason stepped back so fast, it almost looked casual. I looked down at my coffee like it had personally betrayed me. We are just practicing, Mason offered. Too smooth, too quick. Professor Harris smiled like she did not believe either of us. Clearly, when she moved on, the space between us felt colder than before. Mason rubbed the back of his neck, eyes avoiding mine for the first time all day. So, he breathed, forcing a small smile. Good scene. I nodded, even though my chest still felt tight. Yeah, good scene. We did not finish rehearsing. Not really. We read lines, missed cues, laughed at the wrong places, and pretended the almost confession had not happened. But when class ended and everyone packed up, Mason reached for my coffee cup before I could throw it away. He turned it in his hand, thumb brushing over the words fake boyfriend. Then he looked at me, quieter than before. I did not hate it, by the way. My heart kicked hard. The coffee. Mason held my gaze. The label. And before I could answer, he walked out of the room, leaving me there with one thought I could not talk myself out of anymore. Mason had almost said something, and I was terrified because I had almost wanted him to. By lunch, the coffee cup had become a problem. Not the coffee. The cup. I should have thrown it away after class like a normal person, but instead I carried it around campus for almost an hour with fake boyfriend written on the side like evidence. I told myself I kept it because there were still a few sips left. That was a lie. It was empty by the time Noah found me outside the student center, sitting on a bench and pretending to answer emails. He dropped beside me, took one look at the cup, and slowly smiled. Ethan. I did not look up. No. I have not even said anything. Your face said it. Noah leaned closer, reading the label out loud like he was announcing a sports score. Fake boyfriend. Wow. Subtle. I grabbed the cup and turned it away. It is for the assignment. Of course. I also buy coffee for my group project partners and give them romantic little nicknames. It is a joke. Is it? That landed harder than I wanted it to. I looked across the quad, where students were cutting through the grass even though signs clearly said not to. Anything was better than looking at Noah. He softened a little. Hey, I am not making fun of you. You are absolutely making fun of me. A little, yes. But also, he bumped my shoulder. You look happy and terrified at the same time. That is usually a Mason thing. I hated how quickly my face got warm. There is no Mason thing. Noah made a noise like he had just heard the worst lie of his life. Right? And I am the mayor of Boston. Before I could argue, his eyes flicked past me. His eyebrows lifted. Speak of the devil. My whole body reacted before I did. Mason was walking toward the student center with two guys from our class, Caleb and Drew. He had one strap of his backpack over his shoulder, laughing at something Caleb said. Normal Mason. Easy Mason. The Mason everyone liked. Then his eyes found me. The laugh faded just a little. Not in a bad way. More like the room, or the quad, or whatever space we were in had narrowed down for half a second. Noah saw it. Of course he did. That, he murmured, was not nothing. Please stop observing. Mason reached us before I could hide the cup. His gaze dropped to it, then back to me. You kept it. My throat tightened. There was still coffee. Mason tilted the cup gently with one finger. Empty. Noah coughed into his fist, badly hiding a laugh. I have to go do literally anything else. I shot him a look. He stood, smiling way too much. Nice seeing you, Mason. You too. Mason watched Noah leave, then sat on the bench beside me without asking. Not too close. Not far either. Just enough that his knee nearly touched mine. For a few seconds, neither of us said anything. Around us, campus was loud. People talking, bikes rattling over the walkway, someone yelling about losing their AirPods. But between us, it felt like all the sound had a door on it. Mason rubbed his thumb along the strap of his backpack. So your friend thinks we are funny. Noah thinks everything is funny. Does he know? My chest tightened. Know what? Mason glanced at me, and there it was again. That look that made pretending feel childish. About you. I went still. It was not a rude question. It was quiet. Careful. But it still hit a nerve, because there were not many people who knew. Noah did. My older sister did. A few friends from home. Not my parents. Not most people in class. Definitely not Mason. At least, not because I had told him. Yeah. I answered, staring down at the cup. He knows. Mason nodded slowly. Cool. One word. Soft. No judgment. No weirdness. Somehow that made my chest hurt more. I forced a small laugh. Do you ask all your fake boyfriends personal questions on benches? Or am I special? There it was. The exit. The joke. I gave it to him wrapped and ready. Mason looked at me for a long second. Then he smiled, but it did not fully reach his eyes. Maybe both. Before I could figure out how to breathe through that, Caleb's voice cut across the walkway. Mason, dude, you coming? Mason blinked first. The moment snapped. He stood up, quick but not rude, like someone had pulled him back into the world. Yeah. 1 second. Caleb looked between us, then grinned. Do not let us interrupt couple therapy. My stomach dropped. Mason laughed, but it sounded thinner than usual. Shut up. Caleb walked backward, hands raised. I am just saying, Friday is going to be iconic. Mason did not sit back down. He adjusted his backpack, eyes on the ground for a second. Something had changed. Not disappeared. Just pulled inward. I should go. I nodded, even though I did not want him to. Yeah, sure. He hesitated. His hand moved like he might touch my shoulder, maybe my arm, maybe nothing at all. Then he stopped himself. We can practice later. Okay. Text me. Yeah. Mason gave me one last look, smaller now, guarded around the edges. Then he walked away to catch up with Caleb and Drew, leaving just enough distance behind him to make me feel stupid for missing his knee beside mine. Noah came back 2 minutes later with a vending machine soda he clearly had not needed. He looked at my face and stopped smiling. What happened? I turned the empty coffee cup in my hands. The marker was starting to smudge under my thumb. I think someone reminded him people are watching. Noah sat down again, quieter this time. I wanted to say it did not matter. That Mason pulling back was proof I had imagined everything. That the label, the look, the almost confession, all of it was just a joke stretched too far. But when my phone buzzed a few minutes later, Mason's name lit up the screen. Sorry. I panicked. Then another message. Not because of you. I stared at those words until my chest felt too full. And for the first time, I wondered if Mason was not just playing with the line between fake and real. Maybe he was scared of it too. That night, Mason did not come over with chips or jokes or some dumb comment about our fake relationship being on life support. He showed up at my door holding his backpack in one hand, and the kind of expression that made my stomach tighten before he even opened his mouth. Can we not practice yet? I blinked. That is usually the opposite of what people say before a graded performance. His mouth twitched, but it disappeared fast. I mean, can we talk first? The hallway felt too bright behind him, too public. I stepped aside, and he walked in slowly, like my apartment had changed since the last time he was there. It had not. Same couch, same crooked lamp, same coffee table with our packet sitting in the middle like a witness. Mason saw it and looked away. I shut the door. Is this about earlier? He dropped his backpack near the couch, but did not sit. Yeah. I crossed my arms because I needed something to do with my hands. You do not have to apologize again. I kind of do. He rubbed the back of his neck, eyes moving from the floor to me and then away again. That was new. Mason never looked nervous. Not in front of me. Not in class. Not when people teased him. Caleb was just being an idiot. I know. Then why did you panic? The question came out before I could soften it. Mason exhaled through his nose, quiet. Almost a laugh, but not really. Because he said it like it was obvious. My chest went tight. What was obvious? Mason looked at me then. Really looked. The kind of look that made the room feel smaller. Us. I forgot every smart thing I had ever planned to say. There is no us. It was automatic. Safe. Pathetic, honestly. Mason's face shifted, not hurt exactly, but close enough that I hated myself a little. Right. He nodded once and reached for the packet. Then we should practice. Mason. He stopped, fingers resting on the edge of the paper. I could see his jaw working like he was trying to swallow whatever he actually wanted to say. For a second, I thought he would back out again. Make a joke. Call me boyfriend in that easy voice and give us both a place to hide. Instead, he turned toward me. I did not like walking away from you today. My breath caught. Mason kept going, quieter now. I know that sounds stupid. We were sitting on a bench for maybe 5 minutes. But when Caleb made that joke, I saw your face change. And then I left anyway. He looked down at his hands. I hated that. The apartment went still around us. Even the buzzing kitchen light seemed quieter. You texted me. I managed. Yeah, because I spent the next 10 minutes thinking you probably decided I was messing with you. I swallowed. That was painfully close to the truth. Mason stepped closer, not much, just enough for my pulse to notice. I am not. My voice came out smaller than I wanted. Not what? Messing with you. His eyes dropped to my bandaged knuckle, the one he had taken way too seriously the night before. He reached for my hand, then paused before touching me, like he was giving me time to move away. I did not. His fingers closed gently around mine. Nothing dramatic. Nothing anyone would even call a big deal. But his hand was warm and steady, and he was looking at it like he had been wanting to do that for longer than either of us wanted to admit. The coffee cup, he murmured. The jokes. The practicing. The way I keep finding reasons to be around you. His thumb brushed lightly near the bandage. I know I act like it is all part of the assignment, but it is not. My heart was pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. Mason. He gave a small, nervous smile. I know. Bad timing. Weird place. Terrible project. I almost laughed, but it got stuck somewhere in my chest. Then what is it? Mason looked at me, and this time he did not look away. It felt real to me. For words. That was all. For words. And suddenly every excuse I had been using all week sounded ridiculous. The coffee. The label. The almost confession in class. The way he pulled back when people watched, then came back anyway. I wanted to say it felt real to me too. I wanted to say it had felt real before the assignment, before the packet, before fake boyfriend became a joke we both held on it too tightly. But fear got there first. What if it only feels real because we keep pretending? Mason's hand tightened around mine, just a little. Then why did it feel real before? I stopped breathing for a second. He saw it. Of course he did. His voice softened. Ethan, I noticed you before this. My chest ached. Not in a bad way. In a way that scared me because it was too much relief all at once. You never said anything. Neither did you. That was fair. Annoyingly fair. We stood there in the middle of my apartment, holding hands like it was both the smallest thing and the biggest problem in the world. Then Mason looked at the packet on the couch and let out a shaky breath. We should probably rehearse. I nodded, even though neither of us moved. Yeah. Another second passed. His thumb brushed mine again. In a minute, he added. And for once, I did not pretend not to understand. The minute Mason finally let go of my hand, everything got harder. Not because I wanted him to keep holding it. I did. That was the problem. The room felt different after that. like we had moved one piece of furniture and somehow changed the whole apartment. Mason sat on the couch with the packet open on his lap, but neither of us looked at the lines for a while. His shoulder was close to mine. Our knees almost touched. Almost. That word was starting to ruin my life. We should start from the middle, Mason murmured, eyes on the page. The part before the big argument. Sure. My voice sounded normal enough. Barely. We tried reading, but the scene kept catching on things that were not fake anymore. Every line about distance sounded too personal. Every pause felt like a question neither of us wanted to answer. Mason missed his cue twice. I missed mine 3 times. Finally, he laughed under his breath and rubbed both hands over his face. We are terrible at this now. We were fine before. Before we made it weird. I looked at him. He froze like he wished he could grab the words back. I did not mean it like that. But my chest had already tightened. Weird. There it was. The word I had been scared of since the first coffee cup, since the first joke, since his hand around mine. I leaned back, creating just enough space for both of us to notice. No, you are right. Mason turned toward me. Ethan, it is weird. I tried to smile, but it felt wrong on my face. We have a performance in 2 days, and we are sitting here acting like. I stopped because I did not know how to finish without saying too much. Mason's voice softened. Like what? Like I wanted this. Like I was terrified you would wake up tomorrow and decide you only liked the idea of me when there was a script giving you permission. Like if this went badly, I still had to see you in class every week and pretend my heart did not crawl out of my chest every time you looked at me. I said none of that. I picked up my soda instead. Like we are taking homework too seriously. Mason looked away. The small movement hurt more than it should have. Right. Silence stretched between us. Too long. Too careful. He closed the packet and set it on the coffee table. Maybe I should go. My stomach dropped. What? Not because I want to. He stood, grabbing his backpack from the floor, but his fingers hesitated around the strap. I just think we are both kind of overwhelmed. That sounded reasonable. Mature. Safe. I hated it. I also hated that I did not ask him to stay. I just nodded, because apparently fear had taken over my body and was doing a terrible job driving. Yeah, maybe. Mason waited. For what? I do not know. Maybe for me to contradict myself. Maybe for me to stop hiding behind the exact thing he had called me out on. But I sat there like a coward, staring at the corner of the packet. He walked to the door. His hand landed on the knob, then stayed there. For the record, he said quietly, not turning around, I do not regret what I said. My throat tightened. Okay. And I do not regret holding your hand. My eyes burned in that stupid, embarrassing way they do when your body reacts before you give it permission. Mason looked back then, and his expression was careful but open, like he was giving me one last chance. I wanted to take it. I almost did. Then my phone buzzed on the couch. Noah's name lit up the screen, followed by a message preview. Drew heard Mason might ask Jenna to the psych department party. Please tell me that is fake drama. I stared at the words too long. Mason saw my face change. What happened? I flipped the phone over. Too fast. Nothing. His jaw tightened, just slightly. Ethan, you should go. The words came out colder than I meant them to. Mason blinked, hurt flashing across his face before he covered it. Okay. The door clicked shut behind him, and the apartment went quiet in the worst possible way. I picked up my phone with shaky hands and read Noah's message again. Mason might ask Jenna. Maybe it was nothing. Maybe Drew was wrong. Maybe Mason had never meant any of this the way I wanted him to. Or maybe I had just pushed him out before he could prove otherwise. 10 minutes passed. Then 15. No message from Mason. No joke. No apology. No fake boyfriend. Just the packet on my coffee table, still open to the scene where one person pulls away because telling the truth feels too dangerous. And for the first time all week, I understood exactly why that scene hurt. Friday came too fast. By the time I walked into psychology class, my stomach had already been twisting for hours. Mason was there before me, sitting near the back with the packet open on his desk, wearing a black crew neck and that unreadable expression people use when they are trying too hard to look fine. He looked up when I came in. For 1 second, his face changed. Softer. Relieved, maybe. Then Caleb leaned over and said something to him, and Mason looked away. I took my seat 2 rows over because apparently we were both committed to making everything worse. Professor Harris clapped her hands at the front of the room. All right. Performances today. Remember, do not just recite. listen to each other. That felt personal, which was ridiculous, because Professor Harris did not know my life was falling apart over a fake relationship assignment and a rumor about Jenna from the psych department. We had 10 minutes before our turn. Mason finally stood and walked to my desk. Can we talk? My pulse jumped. We are about to perform. I know. His hand rested on the back of the chair in front of me. His fingers tapped once, then stopped. That is why. I followed him into the hallway because staying in the classroom felt impossible. The door shut behind us, muffling the noise. Mason stopped near the vending machines. For a second, neither of us spoke. He looked tired. Not messy, not dramatic, just tired in a way that made my chest ache. Did I do something? He finally asked. I looked down. No, Ethan. Just my name. Quiet. Frustrated. Hurt. I hated how much it cut through me. I saw Noah's text, I admitted. Mason went still. About Jenna? My throat tightened. So it is true. No, the answer came fast. Sharp. He stepped closer, then stopped himself. God, no. Drew made that up because Jenna asked me about the party and I said I did not know if I was going. I stared at him, trying to catch up. You are not asking her. Mason almost laughed, but there was no humor in it. I could barely talk to anyone yesterday because I kept thinking you wanted me to leave. The hallway went quiet around us. A vending machine hummed beside me. Somewhere inside the classroom, someone laughed too loud. Mason looked at the floor, jaw tight. I told you something real, and then you looked at your phone and shut me out. My chest caved a little. I thought you regretted it. His eyes snapped back to mine. I literally said I did not. People say things. Not me. Not about that. I swallowed hard. He was close now. Not touching me. Just close enough that I could feel the space between us like pressure. I got scared, I said, barely above a whisper. Mason's face softened. Of me. Of wanting this and being wrong. There. Finally. The thing I had been dragging around all week. It sat between us, small and huge at the same time. Mason did not jump in right away. He just looked at me like he understood too well. You are not wrong. My breath caught. He reached for my hand, then hesitated, eyes flicking to mine like he was asking without words. I let my fingers move first. Just an inch. Enough. His hand closed around mine, careful and warm. I got scared too, he admitted. When Caleb joked about us, I heard myself laughing it off, and I hated it. Because I did not want you to think I was embarrassed. Were you? Mason shook his head. No. I was scared people would see it before I even knew how to say it to you. My throat felt tight again, but in a different way. Less like panic. More like relief, trying to hurt on the way out. What are we doing, Mason? He looked down at our hands. His thumb brushed once over my knuckles. I do not know yet. Then he met my eyes. But I know I do not want to go back to normal. The classroom door opened suddenly. We both let go too fast. Professor Harris leaned out, eyebrows raised. You two are up next. Mason and I stepped apart like we had been caught doing something illegal, even though all we had done was hold hands in a hallway and tell the truth badly. We will be right in, Mason managed. The door shut again. For a second, we just stood there, breathing. Then Mason looked at me, a nervous smile tugging at his mouth. Ready to pretend? I looked at his hand, then his face. My heart was still racing, but something in me had stopped running. No, I said. Mason's smile faded slightly. I reached for the packet in his hand and folded it shut. I am kind of done pretending. His eyes held mine. The hallway felt too quiet. Then Mason nodded, slow. Yeah, he whispered. Me too. The whole class went quiet when Mason and I stepped back inside. Not silent quiet. Worse. Curious quiet. The kind where people pretend they are not watching, but absolutely are. Professor Harris nodded toward the front. Whenever you are ready. Mason stood beside me with the packet in his hand, still folded shut. Caleb whispered something to Drew, and a couple people laughed under their breath. Normally, that would have made me crawl out of my skin. This time, I looked at Mason. He looked at me. And for once, neither of us looked away first. We are ready, Mason said. His voice was steady, but I saw his fingers tighten around the paper. We started the scene the way we had practiced. At first, I accused him of pulling away. He accused me of shutting down. People settled into the performance, expecting drama, expecting fake jealousy, expecting two guys to make a class project entertaining. But halfway through, Mason stopped reading from the packet. He lowered it to his side and looked straight at me. You keep waiting for me to prove I do not mean it. My heart slammed once. Hard. A few students shifted in their seats. Professor Harris did not interrupt. I knew the line was not in the script. Everyone else probably thought it was. I swallowed. Maybe because I am used to things meaning less than I want them to. Mason's face changed. Just a little. Enough to tell me he heard the truth under it. He stepped closer, still careful, still leaving me room. And what if this does not? My hands felt cold. My chest felt too full. I could have laughed it off. Could have turned it back into acting. Could have saved us both from the entire classroom watching. But I was tired of saving us from things we both wanted. Then I would not know what to do with it. I admitted. Mason nodded like that answer hurt and made sense at the same time. Neither would I. The room stayed still. No one laughed now. No one whispered. Mason looked down at my hand, the one with the small bandage still on my knuckle. Then, slowly enough that I could stop him, he reached for it. My throat tightened. His fingers touched mine. Once. Light. A question. I answered by turning my hand into his. He held on. Not like part of a scene. Not like a joke on a coffee cup. Just held on in front of everyone, and did not pull away. Something moved through the room. A small sound. A breath. Maybe surprise. Maybe recognition. I did not care. Mason's eyes stayed on mine. I do not want fake, he said, quiet but clear. My pulse was everywhere. Then what do you want? He smiled then. Nervous. Real. So different from the easy grin he gave everyone else. Can I tell you after class? A laugh broke out somewhere behind us, soft and relieved. Even Professor Harris smiled down at her clipboard like she was trying not to. I looked at our hands, still joined between us, and felt something inside me settle for the first time all week. Yeah, I said. After class works. We got an A. I know that is not the important part, but it still makes me laugh now, because Professor Harris wrote strong emotional honesty in the feedback box like she had no idea she had just watched two idiots accidentally confess in real time. After class, I expected Mason to let go the second we reached the hallway. He did not. Caleb saw us, looked at our hands, then raised both eyebrows. For 1 second, Mason tensed. I felt it. The old panic. The instinct to step back before someone else named the thing before we could. Then Mason took a breath and tightened his fingers around mine. Yeah, he told Caleb before Caleb could even say anything. I know. Caleb blinked, then grinned. About time. Mason laughed, shaky but real. I laughed too, mostly because if I did not, I might have done something embarrassing like cry in the psychology building hallway. We walked out together into the cold afternoon, shoulder to shoulder, still not saying much. We did not need a huge speech. We did not need to figure out every label before crossing the parking lot. Mason just kept my hand in his like it was simple, even if nothing about getting there had been. At the edge of campus, he glanced over. Coffee. I smiled. As fake boyfriends. He shook his head, and this time there was no fear in it. No, his thumb brushed mine. As us. And that was how it started. Not with some perfect confession. Not with music or rain or a dramatic kiss in front of everyone. Just a class project, a coffee cup, a bandage on my hand, and one guy who stopped pretending a second before I did. Looking back, I think that was the part that changed everything. We did not suddenly become brave. We just got tired of acting like nothing was happening. And once we stopped, Mason's hand was still there. So I held on.